Alright, it is 8 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get things going. Welcome back. This is our 6th night reading from the Odyssey. Let me pop out chat here so I can actually keep tabs on things. And yeah, welcome back. So we are getting into the next step and the next portion of Odysseus' return to Ithaca tonight. There's a fair bit more intermission between the return to Ithaca and the return home than I remembered growing up. But we finally saw the reunion between Odysseus and his son Telemachus last time, which, if you remember, Odysseus had been away for 20 years. I think his son had either just been born or was not even born yet when he left for the war in Troy. So they finally come back, and they found a stalwart ally in the swineherd there that has stayed loyal through all these years despite everything. And they're starting to make plans to take their own little revenge upon the suitors that are trying to woo and steal away Odysseus' wife. So let's go ahead and get into it tonight. We've got a lot of reading ahead of us yet, and I think, if judging by the pace of things is correct, we'll probably finish up just before the big confrontation between Odysseus and the suitors tonight, which will leave us for a good climactic start to everything tomorrow night's stream. So let's go ahead and get back into it. And so we are resuming now with book 17 of the Odyssey. Telemachus relates to his mother what he had heard at Pylos and Sparta. So soon as early dawn shone forth, the rosy-fingered, then Telemachus, the dear son of divine Odysseus, bound beneath his feet his goodly sandals, and took up his mighty spear that fitted his grasp, to make for the city. And he spake to his swineherd, saying, Verily, father, I am bound for the city, that my mother may see me, for methinks that she will not cease from grievous wailing and tearful lament, until she beholds my very face. But this command I give thee, lead this stranger, this hapless one, to the city, that there he may beg his meat, and whoso chooses will give him a morsel of bread and a cup of water. As for myself, I can in no wise suffer every guest who comes to me, so afflicted am I in spirit. But if the stranger be sore angered hereat, the more grievous will it be for himself, howbeit I for one love to speak the truth. And Odysseus of many counsels answered him, saying, I too, my friend, have no great liking to be left behind here. It is better that a beggar should beg his meat in the town than in the fields, and whoso chooses will give it me. For I am not now of an age to abide at the steading, and to obey in all things the word of the master. Nay, go, and this man that thou biddest will lead me, so soon as I shall be warmed with the fire, and the sun waxes hot. For woefully poor are these garments of mine, and I fear lest the hoarfrost of the dawn overcome me. Moreover, ye say the city is far away. So he spake, and Telemachus passed out through the steading, stepping forth at a quick pace, and was sowing the seeds of evil for the wooers. Now, when he was come to the fair-lying house, he set his spear against the tall pillar and leaned it there, and himself went in and crossed the threshold of stone. And the nurse, Eurycleia, saw him far before the rest, and she was strewing skin coverlets upon the carven chairs, and straightway she drew near him, weeping, and all the other maidens of Odysseus, of the hardy heart, were gathered about him, and kissed him lovingly on the head and shoulders. Nowwise Penelope came forth from her chamber, like Artemis or golden Aphrodite, and cast her arms about her dear son, and fell a-weeping, and kissed his face and both his beautiful eyes, and wept aloud, and spake to him winged words. Thou art come, Telemachus, a sweet light in the dark. Methought I should see thee never again, after thou hadst gone in thy ship to Pylos, secretly, and without my will, to seek tidings of thy dear father. Come now, tell me, what sight thou didst get of him? And wise Telemachus answered her, saying, Mother mine, wake not wailing in my soul, nor stir the heart within the breast of me, that have but now fled from utter death. Nay, but wash thee in water, and take to thee fresh raiment, and go aloft to thine upper chamber with the women thy handmaids, and vow to all the gods an acceptable sacrifice of hecatombs, if haply Zeus may grant that deeds of requital be made. But I will go to the assembly place to bid a stranger to our house, one that has accompanied me as I came hither from Pylos. I sent him forward with my godlike company, and commanded Piraeus to lead him home, and to take heed to treat him lovingly and with worship till I should come home. Thus he spake, and wingless her speech remained. And she washed her in water, and took to her fresh raiment, and vowed to all the gods an acceptable sacrifice of hecatombs, if haply Zeus might grant the deeds of requital should be made. Now Telemachus went out through the hall with the spear in his hand, and 2 swift hounds bare him company. And Athene shed on him a wondrous grace, and all the people marveled at him as he came. And the lordly wooers gathered about him, with fair words on their lips, but brooding evil in the deep of their heart. Then he avoided the great press of the wooers, but where Mentor sat, and Antiphus and Halitherses, who were friends of his house from of old, there he went and sat down, and they asked him of all his adventures. Then Piraeus, the famed spearsman, drew nigh, leading the stranger to the assembly place by the way of the town, and Telemachus kept not aloof from him long, but went up to him. Then Piraeus first spake to him, saying, Bestir the women straightway to go to my house, that I may send thee the gifts that Menelaus gave thee. Then wise Telemachus answered him, saying, Piraeus, we know not how these matters will fall out. If the lordly wooers shall slay me by guile in the halls, and divide among them the heritage of my father, then I should wish thee to keep and enjoy the gifts thyself, rather than any of these. But if I shall sow the seeds of death and fate for the wooers, then gladly bring me to the house and the gifts that I will gladly take. Therewith he led the travel-worn stranger to the house. Now, when they had come to the fair-laying palace, they laid aside their mantles on the chairs and high seats, and went to the polished baths, and bathed him. Now, when the maidens had bathed them, and anointed them with olive oil, and cast about them thick mantles and doublets, they came forth from the baths, and sat upon the seats. Then the handmaid bare water for the hands in a goodly golden ewer, and poured it forth over a silver basin to wash withal, and drew to their side a polished table, and the grave dame bare wheaten bread, and set it by them, and laid on the board many dainties, giving freely of such things as she had by her. And the mother of Telemachus sat over against them by the pillar of the hall, leaning against a chair, and spinning the slender threads from the yarn. And they stretched forth their hands upon the good cheer set before them. Now, when they had put from them the desire of meat and drink, the wise Penelope first spake among them. Telemachus, verily, I will go up to my upper chamber, and lay me in my bed, the place of my groanings, that is ever watered by my tears, since the day that Odysseus departed with the sons of Atreus for Ilios. Yet thou hadst no care to tell me clearly, before the lordly wooers came to this house, concerning the returning of thy father, if haply thou hast heard thereof. And wise Telemachus answered her, saying, Yea now, mother, I will tell thee all the truth. We went to Pylos, and to Nestor, the shepherd of the people, and he received me in his lofty house, and was diligent to entreat me lovingly, as a father might his son, that had but newly come from strange lands after many years. Even so, diligently he cared for me with his renowned sons. Yet he said that he had heard no word from any man on earth concerning Odysseus, of the hardy heart, whether alive or dead. But he sent me forward on my way with horses and a chariot, well compact, to Menelaus, son of Atreus, spearman renowned. There I saw Argive Helen, for whose sake the Argives and Trojans bore much travail by the gods' designs. Then straightway Menelaus of the loved war-cry asked me on what quest I had come to goodly Lacedaemon, and I told him the truth. Then he made answer and spake, saying, Out upon them! For truly in the bed of a brave-hearted man were they minded to lie, very cravens as they are, even as when a hind hath couched her newborn fawns unweaned in a strong lion's lair, and searcheth out the mountain knees and the grassy hollows, seeking pasture. And afterward the lion cometh back to his bed, and sendeth forth unsightly death upon that pair. Even so shall Odysseus send forth unsightly death upon the wooers. Would to our father Zeus and Athene and Apollo, would that in such might as when of old in established Lesbos he rose up in strife and wrestled with Philomelides, and threw him mightily, and all the Achaeans rejoiced. Would that in such strength Odysseus might consort with the wooers. Then should they all have a swift fate and bitter wedlock. But for that whereof thou askest and entreatest me, be sure I will not swerve from the truth in aught that I say, nor deceive thee. But of all that the ancient one of the sea, whose speech is sooth, declared to me, not a word will I hide or keep from thee. He said that he saw Odysseus in an island, suffering strong pains in the halls of the nymph Calypso, who holds him there perforce, so that he may not come to his own country, for he has by him no ships with oars, and no companions to send him on his way over the broad back of the sea. So spake Menelaus, son of Atreus, spearsman renowned. Then, having fulfilled all, I set out for home, and the deathless gods gave me a fair wind, and brought me swiftly to mine own dear country. So he spake, and stirred her heart within her breast. And next the godlike Theoclymenus spake among them, O wife revered of Odysseus, son of Laertes, verily he hath no clear knowledge, but my word do thou mark, for I will prophesy to thee most truly and hide naught. Now Zeus be witness before any god, and this hospitable board and this hearth of noble Odysseus, whereunto I am come, that Odysseus is even now of a surety in his own country, resting or faring, learning of these evil deeds, and sowing the seeds of evil for all the wooers. So clear was the omen of the bird that I saw as I sat on the deck and ship, and I proclaimed it to Telemachus. Then wise Penelope answered him, saying, Ah, stranger, would that this thy word may be accomplished. Soon shouldest thou be aware of kindness and of many a gift at my hands, so that whoso met with thee would call thee blessed. Thus they spake one to the other, but the wooers meantime were before the palace of Odysseus, taking their pleasure in casting of weights and of spears on a levelled place, as heretofore, in their insolence. But when it was now the hour for supper, and the flocks came home from the fields all around, and the men led them whose custom it was, then Medon, who of all the henchmen was most to their mind, and was ever with them at the feast, spake to them, saying, Noble youths, now that ye have had sport in your heart's content, get you into the house, that we may make ready a feast, for truly it is no bad thing to take meat in season. Even so he spake, and they rose up and departed, and were obedient to his word. Now when they were come into the fair lying house, they laid aside their mantles on the chairs and high seats, and they sacrificed great sheep and stout goats, yea, and the fatlings of the boars and an heifer of the herd, got ready for the feast. Now all this while Odysseus and the goodly swineherd were bestirring them to go from the field to the city. And the swineherd, a master of men, spake first, saying, Well, my friend, forasmuch as I see thou art eager to be going to the city today, even as my master gave command, though myself I would well that thou shouldest be left here to keep the steading. But I hold him in reverence and fear, lest he chide me afterwards. And grievous are the rebukes of masters. Come then, let us go on our way, for lo, the day is far spent, and soon wilt thou find it colder toward evening. Then Odysseus, of many counsels, answered him, saying, I mark, I heed. All this speakest to one with understanding. But let us be going, and be thou my guide withal to the end. And if thou hast anywhere a staff already cut, give it me to lean upon, for truly ye said that slippery was the way. Therewith he cast about his shoulders a mean scrip, all tattered, and a cord withal to hang it. And Eumaeus gave him a staff to his mind. So these twain went on their way, and the dogs and the herdsmen stayed behind to guard the steading. And the swineherd led his lord to the city in the guise of a beggar, a wretched man and an old, leading on a staff, and sorry was the raiment wherewith he was clothed upon. But as they fared along the rugged path, they drew near to the town, and came to the fair flowing spring, with a basin fashioned, whence the people of the city drew water. This well Ithacus, and Nereus, and Polyctor had builded, and around it was a thicket of alders that grow by the waters, all circle-wise, and down the cold stream fell from a rock on high, and above was reared an altar to the nymphs, whereat all wayfarers made offering. In that place Melanthius, son of Dolius, met them, leading his goats to feast the wooers, the best goats that were in all the herds, and 2 herdsmen bare him company. Now, when he saw them, he reviled them, and spake and hailed them in terrible and evil fashion, and stirred the heart of Odysseus, saying, Now in very truth the vile is leading the vile, for God brings ever like to like. Say, whither art thou leading this glutton, thou wretched swineherd, this plaguy beggar, a killjoy of the feast? He is one to stand about and rub his shoulders against many doorposts, begging for scraps of meat, not for swords or cauldrons. If thou wouldst give me the fellow to watch my steading and sweep out the stalls and carry fresh fodder to the kids, then he might drink whey and give him a stout thigh. Howbeit, since he is practised only in evil, he will not care to betake to him to the labor of the farm, but rather chooses to go louding through the land, asking alms to fill his insatiate belly. But now I will speak out, and my word shall surely be accomplished. If ever he fares to the house of divine Odysseus, many a stool that men's hands hurl shall fly about his head and break upon his ribs, as they pelt him through the house. Therewith, as he went past, he kicked Odysseus on the hip, in his witlessness. Yet he drave him not from the path, but he abode steadfast. And Odysseus pondered whether he should rush upon him and take away his life with the staff, or lift him in his grasp and smite his head to the earth. Yet he hardened his heart to endure, and refrained himself. And the swineherd looked at the other and rebuked him, lifting up his hands and prayed aloud. Nymphs of the well-water, daughters of Zeus, if ever Odysseus burned on your altars pieces of the thighs of rams or kids, in their covering of rich fat, fulfill for me this wish. Oh, that he, even he, may come home, and that some god may bring him, that would he scatter all thy bravery, which now thou flauntest insolently, wandering ever about the city, while evil shepherds destroy the flock. Then Melanthius the goatherd answered, Lo now, what a word has this evil-witted dog been saying! Some day I will take him in a black-decked ship far from Ithaca, that he may bring me in much livelihood. Would God that Apollo of the silver bow might smite Telemachus today in the halls, or that he might fall before the wooers, so surely as for Odysseus the day of returning has in a far land gone by. So he spake, and left them there as they walked slowly on. But Melanthius stepped forth, and came very speedily to the house of the prince. And straightway he went in, and sat down among the wooers, over against Eurymachus, who chiefly showed him kindness. And they that ministered set by him a portion of flesh, and the grave dame brought wheaten bread, and set it by him to eat. Now Odysseus and the goodly swineherd drew near, and stood by, and the sound of the hollow lyres rang round them. For Phemius was lifting up his voice amid the company in song, and Odysseus caught the swineherd by the hand, and spake, saying, Eumaeus, verily, this is the fair house of Odysseus, and right easily might it be known and marked even among many. There is building beyond building, and the court of the house is cunningly wrought with a wall and battlements, and well fenced are the folding doors. No man may hold it in disdain. And I see that many men keep revel within, for the savor of the fat rises upwards. And the voice of the lyre is heard there, which the gods have made to be the mate of the feast. Then didst thou make answer, swineherd Eumaeus. Easily thou knowest it, for indeed thou never lackest understanding. But come, let us advise us how things shall fall out here. Either do thou go first within the fair-lying halls, and join the company of the wooers, so will I remain here. Or if thou wilt, abide here, and I will go before thy face, and tarry not long, lest one see thee without, and hurl at thee or strike thee. Look well to this, I bid thee. Then the steadfast, goodly Odysseus answered him, saying, I mark, I heed. All this thou speakest to one with understanding. Do thou then go before me, and I will remain here, for well I know what it is to be smitten and hurled at. My heart is full of hardiness, for much evil have I suffered in perils of waves and war. Let this be added to the tale of those, but a ravening belly may none conceal, a thing accursed, that works much ill for men. For this cause too the bench ships are furnished, that bear mischief to foemen over the unharvested sea. Thus they spake one to the other, and lo, a hound raised up his head and pricked his ears, even where he lay. Argus, the hound of Odysseus, of the hardy heart, which of old himself had bred, but had gotten no joy of him, for ere that he went to sacred Ilios. Now in time past the young men used to lead the hound against wild goats and deer and hares, but as then despised he lay, his master being far, in the deep dung of mules and kine, whereof an ample bed was spread before the doors, till the thralls of Odysseus should carry it away to dung therewith his wide demesne. There lay the dog Argos, full of vermin. Yet even now, when he was ware of Odysseus standing by, he wagged his tail and dropped both his ears. But nearer to his master he had not now the strength to draw. But Odysseus looked aside and wiped away a tear that he easily hid from Eumaeus. And straightway he asked him, saying, Eumaeus, verily, this is a great marvel, this hound lying here in the dung. Truly, he is goodly of growth, but I know not certainly if he have speed with this beauty, or if he be comely only, like as are men's trencher dogs that their lords keep for their pleasure of the eye. Then didst thou make answer, swineherd Eumaeus, in very truth, this is the dog of a man that has died in a far land. If he were what once he was in limb and in the feats of the chase, when Odysseus left him to go to Troy, soon wouldst thou marvel at the sight of his swiftness and his strength. There was no beast that could flee from him in the deep places of the wood, and he was in pursuit, for even on a track he was the keenest hound. But now he is holden in an evil case, and his lord hath perished far from his own country, and the careless women take no charge of him. Nay, thralls are no more inclined to honest service when their masters have lost the dominion, for Zeus of the far-born voice takes away the half of a man's virtue when the day of slavery comes upon him. Therewith he passed within the fair-lying house, and went straight to the hall, to the company of the proud wooers. But upon Argos came the fate of black death, even in the hour that he beheld Odysseus again in the 20th year. Now godlike Telemachus was far the first to behold the swineherd as he came into the hall, and straightway, when he beckoned and called him to his side, so Eumaeus looked about and took a settle that lay by him, where the carver was wont to sit dividing much flesh among the wooers that were feasting in the house. This seat he carried and set by the table of Telemachus, over against him, and there he sat himself down, and the henchman took a mess and served it him, and wheaten bread out of the basket. And close behind him Odysseus entered the house in the guise of a beggar, a wretched man and an old, leaning on his staff, and clothed on with sorry raiment. And he sat down on the ashen threshold within the doorway, leaning against a pillar of cypress wood, which the carpenter on a time had deftly planed, and thereon made straight the line. And Telemachus called the swineherd to him, and took a whole loaf out of the fair basket, and of flesh so much as his hands could hold in their grasp, saying, Take, and give this to the stranger. Bid him go and bout and beg himself of all the wooers in their turn, for shame is an ill mate of a needy man. So he spake, and the swineherd went when he heard that saying, and stood by and spake to him winged words. Stranger, Telemachus gives thee these, and bids thee go about and beg of all the wooers in their turn, for he says, shame ill becomes a beggar man. Then Odysseus, of many counsels, answered him and said, King Zeus, grant me that Telemachus may be happy among men, and may he have all his heart's desire. Therewith he took the gift in both hands, and set it there before his feet on his unsightly scrip. Then he ate meat so long as the minstrel was singing in the halls. When he had done supper, and the divine minstrel was ending his song, then the wooers raised a clamor through the halls, but Athene stood by Odysseus, son of Laertes, and moved him to go gathering morsels of bread among the wooers, and learn which were righteous and which unjust. Yet not even so was she fated to redeem one man of them from an evil doom. So he set out, beginning on the right, to ask of each man, stretching out his hand on every side, as though he were a beggar from of old. And they in pity gave him somewhat, and were amazed at the man, asking one another who he was and whence he came. Then Melanthius the goatherd spake among them, Listen, ye wooers, of the renowned queen, concerning this stranger, for verily I have seen him before. The swineherd truly was his guide hither, but of him I have no certain knowledge, whence he avows him to be born. So spake he, but Antinous rebuked the swineherd, saying, O notorious swineherd, wherefore, I pray thee, didst thou bring this man to the city? Have we not vagrants enough besides, plaguey bears, killjoys of the feast? Dost thou count it a light thing that they assemble here and devour the living of thy master? But thou must needs call in this man too? Then didst thou make answer, swineherd Eumaeus, Antinous, no fair words are these of mine, noble though thou art. For whoever himself seeks out and bids to the feast a stranger from afar, save only one of those that are craftsmen of the people, a prophet, or a healer of ills, or a shipwright, or even a godlike minstrel, who can delight all with his song, nay, these are the men that are welcome all over the wide earth. But none would call a beggar to the banquet, to waste his substance. But thou art ever hard above all the other wooers to the servants of Odysseus, and beyond all to me. But behold, I care not, so long as my mistress, the constant Penelope, lives in the halls, and godlike Telemachus. Then wise Telemachus answered him, saying, Be silent, answer him not, I pray thee, with many words, for Antinous is wont ever to chide us shamefully with bitter speech, yea, and urges the others thereto. Therewithal he spake winged words to Antinous. Antinous, verily, thou hast a good care for me, as it were such a father for his son. Thou that biddest me drive our guest from the hall with a harsh command. God forbid that such a thing should be. Take somewhat and give it to him. Lo, I grudge it not. Nay, I charge thee to do it. And herein regard not my mother nor any of the thralls that are in the house of divine Odysseus. Nay, but thou hast no such thought in thy heart, for thou art far more fain to eat thyself than to give to another. Then Antinous answered him, and spake, saying, Telemachus, proud of speech, and unrestrained in fury, what word hast thou spoken? If all the wooers should vouchsafe him as much as I, this house would keep him far enough aloof, even for 3 months' space. So he spake, and seized the footstool whereon he rested his sleek feet as he sat at the feast, and showed it from beneath the table where it lay. But all the others gave somewhat, and filled the wallet with bread and flesh, yea. And even now, Odysseus, as he returned to the threshold, was like to escape scot-free, making trial of the Achaeans. But he halted by Antinous, and spake to him, saying, Friend, give me somewhat, for methinks thou art not the barest of the Achaeans, but the best man of them all, for thou art like a king. Wherefore thou shouldst give me a portion of bread, and that a better than the others. So would I make thee renowned all over the wide earth. For I too once had a house of mine own among men, a rich man with a wealthy house, and many a time would I give to a wanderer, what manner of man soever he might be, and in whatsoever need he came. And I had thralls out of number, and all else in plenty, wherewith folk live well, and have a name for riches. But Zeus, the son of Cronos, made me desolate of all, for surely it was his will, who sent me with wandering sea robbers to go to Egypt, a far road to my ruin. And in the river Aegyptus I stayed my curved ships. Then verily I bade my loved companions to abide there by the ships, and to guard the ship. And I sent forth scouts to range the points of outlook. Now they gave place to wantonness, being the fools of their own force. And soon they fell to wasting the fields of the Egyptians, exceeding fair, and carried away their wives and infant children, and slew the men. And the cry came quickly to the city, and the people heard the shout, and came forth at the breaking of the day. And all the plain was filled with footmen and horsemen, and with the glitter of bronze. And Zeus, whose joy is in the thunder, sent an evil panic upon my company, and none durst stand and face the foe, for danger encompassed us on every side. There they slew many of us with the edge of the sword, and others they led up with them alive to work for them perforce. But they gave me to a friend who met them to take to Cyprus, even to Demeter, son of Iasus, who ruled mightily over Cyprus. And thence, behold, am I now come hither in sore distress. Then Antinous answered and spake, saying, What god hath brought this plague hither to trouble the feast? stand forth thus in the midst, away from my table, lest thou come soon to a bitter Egypt and a sad Cyprus. For a bold beggar art thou, and a shameless. Thou standest by all in turn, and recklessly they give to thee. For they hold not their hand, nor feel any ruth in giving freely of others' goods, for that each man has plenty by him. Then Odysseus of many counsels drew back and answered him, Lo now, I see thou hast not wisdom with thy beauty. From out of thine own house thou wouldst not give even so much as a grain of salt to thy suppliant, thou who now even at another's board dost sit, and canst not find it in thy heart to take of the bread and give it me, where there is plenty to thy hand. He spake, and Antinous was mightily angered at heart, and looked fiercely on him, and spake winged words. Henceforth, methinks, thou shalt not get thee out with honor from this hall, seeing thou dost even rail upon me. Therewith he caught up the footstool, and smote Odysseus at the base of the right shoulder by the back. But he stood firm as a rock, nor reeled he beneath the blow of Antinous, but shook his head in silence, brooding evil in the deep of his heart. Then he went back to the threshold, and sat him there, and laid down his well-filled scrip, and spake among the wooers. Hear me, ye wooers of the renowned queen, and I will say what my spirit within me bids me. Verily, there is neither pain nor grief of heart when a man is smitten in battle fighting for his own possessions, whether cattle or white sheep. But now Antinous hath stricken me for my wretched belly's sake, a thing accursed, that works much ill for men. Ah, if indeed there be gods and avengers of beggars, may the issues of death come upon Antinous before his wedding. Then Antinous, son of Euphetes, answered him, Sit and eat thy meat in quiet, stranger, or get thee elsewhere, lest the young men drag thee by hand or foot through the house for thy evil words, and strip all thy flesh from off thee. Even as he spake, and they were all exceeding wroth at his word. And on this wise would one of the lordly young men speak. Antinous, thou didst ill to strike the hapless wanderer, doomed man that thou art. If indeed there be a God in heaven, yea, and the gods in the likeness of strangers from far countries put on all manner of shapes, and wander through the cities, beholding the violence and the righteousness of men. So the wooer spake, but he heeded not their words. Now Telemachus nursed in his heart a mighty grief at the smiting of Odysseus, yet he let no tear fall from his eyelids to the ground, but shook his head in silence, brooding evil in the deep of his heart. Now, when wise Penelope heard of the stranger being smitten in the halls, she spake among her maidens, saying, Oh, that Apollo, the famed archer, may so smite thee thyself, Antinous. And the housedame, Eurynome, answered her, saying, Oh, that he might win fulfillment of our prayers. So should not one of these men come to the fair-throned dawn. And wise Penelope answered her, Nurse, they are all enemies, for they all devise evil continually. But of them all, Antinous is the most like to black fate. Some hapless stranger is roaming about the house, begging alms of the men, and his needs bids him. And all the others filled his wallet and gave him somewhat, but Antinous smote him at the base of the right shoulder with a stool. So she spake among her maidens, sitting in her chamber, while goodly Odysseus was at meat. Then she called to her the goodly swineherd, and spake, saying, Go thy way, goodly Eumaeus, and bid the stranger come hither, that I may speak him a word of greeting, and ask him, if haply he has heard tidings of Odysseus of the hardy heart, or seen him with his eyes, for he seems like one that has wandered far. Then didst thou make answer, swineherd Eumaeus, Queen, oh that the Achaeans would hold their peace, so would he charm thy very heart. Such things doth he say, for I kept him 3 nights and 3 days I held him in the steading, for to me he came first when he fled from the ship. Yet he had not made an end of the tale of his affliction, even when a man gazes on a singer, whom the gods have taught to sing words of yearning joy to mortals, and they have a ceaseless desire to hear him. So long as he will sing, even so he charmed me. Sitting by me in the halls, he says that he is a friend of Odysseus, and of his house, one that dwells in Crete, Where is the race of Minos? Thence he has come hither even now, with sorrow by the way, onward and yet onward wandering. And he stands to it that he has heard tidings of Odysseus nigh at hand and yet alive in the fat land of the men of Thesprotia, and he is bringing many treasures to his home. Then wise Penelope answered him, saying, Go, call him hither, that he may speak to me face to face. But let these men sit in the doorway, and take their pleasure, or even here in the house, since their heart is glad. For their own wealth lies unspoiled at home, bread and sweet wine, and thereon do their servants feed. But they, resorting to our house day by day, sacrifice oxen and sheep and fat goats, and keep revel and drink the dark wine recklessly. And lo, our great wealth is wasted. For there is no man now alive, such as Odysseus was, to keep ruin from the house. Oh, if Odysseus might come again to his own country. Soon would he and his son avenge the violence of these men. Even so she spake, and Telemachus sneezed loudly, and round the roof rang wondrously. And Penelope laughed, and straightway spake to Eumaeus winged words. Go, call me the stranger, even so, into my presence. Dost thou not mark how my son has sneezed a blessing on all my words? Wherefore no half-wrought doom shall befall the wooers every one. Nor shall any avoid death in the fates. Yet another thing will I say, and do thou ponder it in thy heart. If I shall find that he himself speaks naught but truth, I will clothe him with a mantle and a doublet, goodly raiment. Even the Greeks knew, way back then, if somebody's talking about you, you're going to sneeze. It just happens. It happens. It's a universal truth. Sorry. That's just the way it is. So she spake, and the swineherd departed when he heard that saying, and stood by the stranger and spake winged words. Father and stranger, wise Penelope, the mother of Telemachus, is calling for thee, and her mind bids her inquire as touching her lord, albeit she has sorrowed much already. And if she shall find that thou dost speak naught but truth, she will clothe thee in a mantle and a doublet, whereof thou standest most in need. Moreover, thou shalt beg thy bread through the land, and shalt fill thy belly, and whosoever will shall give to thee. Then the steadfast, goodly Odysseus answered him, saying, Eumaeus, soon would I tell all the truth to the daughter of Icarius, wise Penelope, for well I know his story, and we have borne our travail together. But I tremble before the throng of the froward wooers, whose outrage and violence reach even to the iron heaven. For even now, as I was going through the house, when this man struck and pained me sore, and that for no ill deed, neither Telemachus nor any other kept off the blow. Wherefore now bid Penelope tarry in the chambers, for all her eagerness, till the going down of the sun, and then let her ask me concerning her lord, as touching the day of his returning, and let her give me a seat yet nearer to the fire. For behold, I have sorry raiment, and thou knowest it thyself, since I made my supplication first to thee. Even as he spake, and the swineherd departed when he heard that saying. And as he crossed the threshold, Penelope spake to him, Thou bringest him not, Eumaeus? What means the wanderer hereby? Can it be that he fears someone out of our measure? Or is he even ashamed of tarrying in the house? A shamefaced man makes a bad beggar. Then didst thou make answer, swineherd Eumaeus, He speaks aright, and but as another would deem, in that he shuns the outrage of overweening men. Rather would he have thee wait till the going down of the sun. Yea, and it is far meeter for thyself, O queen, to utter thy word to the stranger alone, and to listen to his speech. Then the wise Penelope answered, Not witless is the stranger, even as he deems. So it well may be. For there are no mortal men, methinks, so wanton as these, and none that devise such infatuate deeds. So she spake, and the goodly swineherd departed into the throng of the wooers, when he had showed her all his message, and straightway he spake to Telemachus winged words, holding his head close to him, that the others might not hear. Friend, I am going hence to look after thy swine and the things of the farm, thy livelihood and mine. But do thou take charge of all that is here. Yet first, look to thyself, and take heed that no evil comes nigh thee. For many of the Achaeans have ill will against us, whom may Zeus confound before their mischief falls on us. And wise Telemachus answered him, and said, Even so it shall be, Father, and do thou get thee on thy way, when thou hast supped, and in the morning come again, and bring fair victims for sacrifice, and all these matters will be a care to me and to the deathless gods. Thus he spake, and the other sat down again on the polished settle. And when he had satisfied his heart with meat and drink, he went on his way to the swine, leaving the courts and the hall full of feasters. And they were making merry with dance and song, for already it was close on eventide. And that brings us to the end of book 17. So we're starting to edge closer and closer to the confrontation. Odysseus has arrived in his home and almost talked to Penelope, but thought it probably wise not to do that in front of the crowd of suitors. That could have gone poorly, I'm sure. Trying to keep his tail straight after seeing his wife for the first time in 20 years. And as ever, as one might expect, the ringleader of the suitors, the worst of the wooers, was kind of a right asshole. So he's kind of the Gaston of this group. Yeah, we're at the home stretch. We're almost there. I say that, but we still have almost 30% of the book left. There is a remarkable amount of book in this that's after Odysseus comes back to Ithaca. I always forget how much there is. Like, it's almost half the book is after the return. All right. Let's continue. We've got another chapter in us before we have to take a break. And so we continue now with book 18 of the Odyssey. The fighting at fists of Odysseus with Eris. His admonitions to Amphinomus. Penelope appears before the wooers and draws presents from them. Then up came a common beggar, who was wont to beg throughout the town of Ithaca, one that was known among all men for ravening greed, for his endless eating and drinking. Yet he had no force or might, though he was bulky enough to look on. Arneus was his name, for so had his good mother given it him at his birth. But all the young men called him Eris, because he ran on errands. Whensoever any might bid him, so now he came, and would have driven Odysseus from his own house, and began reviling him, and spake winged words. Get thee hence, old man, from the doorway, lest thou be even haled out soon by the foot. Seest thou not that all are now giving me the wink, and bidding me drag thee forth? Nevertheless, I feel shame of the task. Nay, get thee up, lest our quarrel soon pass even to blows. Then Odysseus of many counsels looked fiercely on him, and spake, saying, Sir, neither in deed nor word do I harm thee, nor do I grudge that any should give to thee, yea, though it were a good handful. But this threshold will hold us both, and thou hast no need to be jealous for the sake of other men's goods. Thou seemest to me to be a wanderer, even as I am, and the gods it is that are like to give us gain. Only provoke me not overmuch to buffeting, lest thou anger me, and old though I be, I defile thy breast and lips with blood. Thereby should I have the greater quiet tomorrow, for methinks that thou shalt never again come to the hall of Odysseus, son of Laertes. Then the beggar Eris spake unto him in anger, Lo now, how trippingly, and like an old cinder-wife, this glutton speaks, on whom I will work my evil will, and smite him right and left, and drive all the teeth from his jaws to the ground, like the tusks of a swine that spoils the corn. Gird thyself now, that even these men all may know our mettle in fight. Nay, how shouldst thou do battle with a younger man than thou? Thus did they whet each other's rage right manfully before the lofty doors upon the polished threshold. And the mighty Prince Antinous heard the twain, and sweetly he laughed out, and spake among the wooers, Friends, never before has there been such a thing. Such goodly game has a god brought to this house. The stranger yonder and Eris are bidding each other to buffets. Quick, let us match them one against the other. Then, all at the word, leaped up laughing, and gathered round the ragged beggars. And Antinous, son of Eupeithes, spake among them, saying, Hear me, ye lordly wooers, and I will say somewhat. Here are goats' bellies flying at the fire, and we laid by at supper time, and filled with fat and blood. Now, whichsoever of the twain wins, and shows himself the better man, let him stand up and take his choice of these puddings. And further, he shall always eat at our feasts, nor will we suffer any other beggar to come among us and ask for alms. So spake Antinous, and the saying pleased them well. Then Odysseus of many counsels spake among them craftily, Friends, an old man and fordone with travail may in no wise fight with a younger, but my belly's call is urgent on me, that evil worker, to the end that I may be subdued with stripes. But come now, swear me all of you a strong oath, so that none, for the sake of shewing a favor to Eris, may strike me a foul blow with heavy hand and subdue me by violence to my foe. So he spake, and they all swore not to strike him, as he bade them. Now, when they had sworn and done that oath, the mighty Prince Telemachus once more spake among them, Stranger, if thy heart and lordly spirit urge thee to rid thee of this fellow, then fear not any other of the Achaeans. For whoso strikes thee shall have to fight with many. Thy host am I, and the princes consent with me, Antinous and Eurymachus, men of wisdom both. So spake he, and they all consented thereto. Then Odysseus girt his rags about his loins, and set his thighs be seen, goodly and great, and his broad shoulders and breast and mighty arms were manifest. And Athene came nigh, and made greater the limbs of the shepherd of the people. Then the wooers were exceedingly amazed, and thus would one speak looking to his neighbor, Right soon will Eris, unearist, have a bane of his own bringing, such a thigh as that old man shows from out his rags. So they spake, and the mind of Eris was pitifully stirred. But even so, the servants girded him and led him out perforce in great fear, his flesh trembling on his limbs. Then Antinous chid him, and spake and hailed him, Thou lubber, better for thee that thou wert not now, nor ever hast been born, if indeed thou tremblest before this man, and art so terribly afraid. An old man too he is, and fordone with the travel that has come upon him. But I will tell thee plainly, and it shall surely be accomplished. If this man prevail against thee, and prove thy master, I will cast thee into a black ship, and send thee to the mainland to Achaeus the king, the maimer of all mankind, who will cut off thy nose and ears with the pitiless steel, and draw out thy vitals, and give them raw to dogs to rend. So he spake, and yet greater trembling gat hold of the limbs of Eris, and they led him into the ring. And the twain put up their hands. Then the steadfast goodly Odysseus mused in himself whether he should smite him in such wise that his life should leave his body, even there where he fell, or whether he should strike him lightly, and stretch him on the earth. And as he thought thereon, this seemed to him the better way, to strike lightly, that the Achaeans might not take note of him, who he was. Then the twain put up their hands, and Eris struck at the right shoulder, but the other smote him on the neck beneath the ear, and crushed in the bones, and straightway the red blood gushed up through his mouth, and with a moan he fell in the dust, and drave together his teeth as he kicked the ground. But the proud wooers threw up their hands, and died outright for laughter. Then Odysseus seized him by the foot, and dragged him forth through the doorway, till he came to the courtyard, and the gates of the gallery, and he set him down, and rested him against the courtyard wall, and put his staff in his hands, and uttering his voice spake to him winged words. Sit thou there now, and scare off swine and dogs, and let not such an one as thou be lord over strangers and beggars, pitiful as thou art, lest haply some worse thing befall thee. Yeah, I know, right? It's a very anticlimactic cripple fight. Just boop, bop, down. Thus he spake, and cast about his shoulders his mean scrip all tattered, and the cord therewith to hang it, and he gat him back to the threshold, and sat him down there again. Now the wooers went within laughing sweetly, and greeted him, saying, "May Zeus, stranger, and all the other deathless gods give thee thy dearest wish, even all thy heart's desire, seeing that thou hast made that insatiate one to cease from his begging in the land. Soon we will take him over to the mainland, to Echidus the king, the maimer of all mankind." So they spake, and goodly Odysseus rejoiced in the omen of the words. And Antinous set by him the great pudding, stuffed with fat and blood. And Amphinomus took up 2 loaves from the basket, and set them by him, and pledged him in a golden cup, and spake, saying, "Father and stranger, hail! May happiness be thine in the time to come. But as now thou art fast holden in many sorrows." And Odysseus of many counsels answered him, saying, "Amphinomus, verily thou seemst to me a prudent man enough. For such too was the father of whom thou art sprung. For I have heard the fair fame of him, how that Nisus of Dulichium was a good man and a rich. His son they say thou art, and thou seemest a man of understanding. Wherefore I will tell thee, and do thou mark and listen to me. Naught feebler doth the earth nurture than man. Of all the creatures that breathe and move upon the face of the earth, lo, he thinks that he shall never suffer evil in time to come, while the gods give him happiness, and his limbs move lightly. But when again the blessed gods have wrought for him sorrow, even so he bears it, as he must, with a steadfast heart. For the spirit of men upon the earth is even as their day, that comes upon them from the Father of gods and men. Yea, and I too once was like to have been prosperous among men. But many an infatuate deed I did, giving place to mine own hardihood and strength, and trusting to my father and my brethren. Wherefore let no man forever be lawless any more, but keep quietly the gifts of the gods, whatsoever they may give. Such infatuate deeds do I see the wooers devising, as they waste the wealth and hold in no regard the wife of a man, who, methinks, will not much longer be far from his friends and his own land. Nay, he is very near. But for thee, may some god withdraw thee hence to thy home, and mayest thou not meet him in the day when he returns to his own dear country. For not without blood, as I deem, will they be sundered, the wooers and Odysseus. Then when once he shall have come beneath his own roof. Thus he spake, and poured an offering, and then drank of the honey-sweet wine, and again set the cup in the hands of the arrayer of the people. But the other went back through the hall, sad at heart, and bowing his head, for verily his soul boded evil. Yet even so he avoided not his fate, for Athene had bound him likewise to be slain outright at the hands and by the spear of Telemachus. So he sat down again on the high seat whence he had arisen. Now the goddess, grey-eyed Athene, put it into the heart of the daughter of Icarius, wise Penelope, to show herself to the wooers, that she might make their heart all flutter with hope, and that she might win yet more worship from her lord and her son than heretofore. Till she laughed an idle laugh, and spake to the nurse, and hailed her, saying, "Eurynome, my heart yearns, though before I had no such desire, to show myself to the wooers, hateful as they are. I would also say a word to my son. That will be for his weal, namely, that he should not forever consort with the proud wooers, who speak friendly with their lips, but imagine evil in the latter end." Then the housewife, Eurynome, spake to her, saying, "Yea, my child, all this thou hast spoken as is meet. Go then, and declare thy word to thy son, and hide it not. But first wash thee and anoint thy face, and go not as thou art with thy cheeks all stained with tears. Go, for it is little good to sorrow always, and never cease. And lo, thy son is now of an age to hear thee, he whom thou hast above all things prayed the gods that thou mightest see with a beard upon his chin." Then wise Penelope answered her, saying, "Eurynome, speak not thus comfortably to me, for all thy love, bidding me to wash and be anointed with ointment. For the gods that keep Olympus destroyed my bloom, since the day that he departed in the hollow ships. But bid Autonoe and Hippodamia come to me, to stand by my side in the halls. Alone I will not go among men, for I am ashamed." So she spake, and the old woman passed through the chamber to tell the maidens, and hasten their coming. Thereon, the goddess, grey-eyed Athene, had another thought. She shed a sweet slumber over the daughter of Icarius, who sank back in sleep, and all her joints were loosened as she lay in the chair. And the fair goddess the while was giving her gifts immortal, that all the Achaeans might marvel at her. Her fair face first she steeped with beauty imperishable, such as that wherewith the crowned Cytherea is anointed, when she goes to the lovely dances of the Graces. And she made her taller and greater to behold, and made her whiter than new sawn ivory. Now, when she had wrought thus, that fair goddess departed, and the white-armed handmaidens came forth from the chamber, and drew nigh with a sound of voices. Then sweet sleep left hold of Penelope, and she rubbed her cheeks with her hands, and said, Surely, soft slumber wrapped me round, most wretched though I be. Oh, that pure Artemis would give me so soft a death even now, that I might no more waste my life in sorrow of heart, and longing for the manifold excellence of my dear Lord, for that he was foremost of the Achaeans. With this word she went down from the shining upper chamber, not alone, for 2 handmaidens likewise bare her company. But when the fair lady had now come to the wooers, she stood by the pillar of the well-builded roof, holding her glistening tire before her face. And on either side of her stood a faithful handmaid, and straightway the knees of the wooers were loosened, and their hearts were enchanted with love, and each one uttered a prayer that he might be her bedfellow. But she spake to Telemachus, her dear son, Telemachus, thy mind and thy thoughts are no longer stable as they were. While thou wast still a child, thou hadst a yet quicker and more crafty wit. But now that thou art great of growth, and art come to the measure of manhood, and a stranger looking to thy stature and thy beauty might say that thou must be some rich man's son, thy mind and thy thoughts are no longer right as of old. For lo, what manner of deed has been done in these halls, in that thou hast suffered thy guest to be thus shamefully dealt with? How would it be now if the stranger sitting thus in our house were to come to some harm all through this evil handling? Shame and disgrace would be thine henceforth among men. Yeah, scold him, mama. Then wise Telemachus answered her, Mother mine, as to this matter I count it no blame that thou art angered. Yet have I knowledge and understanding of each thing, of the good and of the evil. But heretofore I was a child. Howbeit I cannot devise all things according to wisdom, for these men in their evil counsel drive me away from my wits, on this side and on that, and there is none to aid me. Howsoever, this battle between Eris and the stranger did not fall out as the wooers would have had it, but the stranger proved the better man. Would to Father Zeus and Athene and Apollo that the wooers in our halls were even now thus vanquished, and wagging their heads, some in the court and some within the house, and that the limbs of each man were loosened in such fashion as Eris yonder sits now, by the courtyard gates, wagging his head like a drunken man, and cannot stand upright on his feet, nor yet get him home to his own place, seeing that his limbs are loosened. Thus they spake one to another. But Eurymachus spake to Penelope, saying, Daughter of Icarius, wise Penelope, if all the Achaeans in Odyssey and Argos could behold thee, even a greater press of wooers would feast in your halls from tomorrow's dawn, since thou dost surpass all women in beauty and stature, and within in wisdom of mind. Then wise Penelope answered him, Eurymachus, surely my excellence, both of face and form, the gods destroyed in the day when the Argives embarked for Ilios, and with them went my lord Odysseus. If but he might come and watch over this my life, greater thus would be my fame and fairer. But now am I in sorrow. Such a host of ills some god has sent against me. Ah, well do I remember, when he set forth and left his own country, how he took me by the right hand at the wrist, and spake, saying, Lady, methinks that all goodly grieved Achaeans will not win a safe return from Troy. For the Trojans too, they say, are good men at arms, as spearsmen and bowmen and drivers of fleet horses, such as ever most swiftly determine the great strife of equal battle. Wherefore I know not if the gods will suffer me to return, or whether I shall be cut off there in Troy. So do thou have a care for all these things. be mindful of my father and my mother in the halls, even as now thou art, or yet more than now, for while I am far away. But when thou seest thy son a bearded man, marry whom thou wilt, and leave thine own house. Even so did he speak, and now all these things have an end. The night shall come when a hateful marriage shall find me out, me most luckless, whose good hap Zeus has taken away. But furthermore, this sore trouble has come on my heart and soul, for this was not the manner of wooers in time past. Who so wished to woo a good lady and the daughter of a rich man, and vie one with another, themselves to bring with them oxen of their own, and goodly flocks, a banquet for the friends of the bride, and they give the lady splendid gifts, but do not devour another's livelihood without atonement. Thus she spake, and the steadfast goodly Odysseus rejoiced, because she drew from them gifts, and beguiled their souls with soothing words, while her heart was set on other things. Then Antinous, son of Euphates, answered her again, Daughter of Icarius, wise Penelope, the gifts which any of the Achaeans may choose to bring hither, do thou take, for it were ill to withhold a gift. But we, for our part, will neither go to our lands nor otherwhere, before thou art wedded to the best man of the Achaeans. So spake Antinous, and the saying pleased them well. And each man sent a henchman to bring his gifts, for Antinous his henchman bare a broidered robe, great and very fair, wherein were golden brooches, 12 in all, fitted with well-bent clasps. And the henchman straightway bare Eurymachus a golden chain of curious work, strung with amber beads, shining like the sun. And his squires bare for Eurydamas a pair of earrings, with 3 drops well wrought, and much grace shone from them. And out of the house of Peisander, the prince, the son of Polyctor, the squire brought a necklet, a very lovely jewel, and likewise the Achaeans brought each one some other beautiful gift. Then the fair lady went aloft to her upper chamber, and her attendant maidens bare for her the lovely gifts, while the wooers turned to dancing and delight of song, and therein took their pleasure, and awaited the coming of eventide. And dark evening came on them at their pastime. Anon they set up 3 braziers in the hall, and to give them light, and on these they laid firewood all around, faggots seasoned long since and sere, and new split within the axe. And midway by the braziers they placed torches, and the maids of Odysseus, of the hardy heart, held up the lights in turn. Then the prince Odysseus of many counsels himself spake among them, saying, Ye maidens of Odysseus, the lord so long afar, get ye into the chambers, where the honored queen abides, and twist the yarn at her side, and gladden her heart as ye sit in the chamber, or card the wools with your hands. But I will minister light to all these that are here, for even if they are minded to wait the throned dawn, they shall not outstay me, so long enduring am I. So he spake, but they laughed and looked one at the other. And the fair Melantho chid him shamefully. Melantho, that Dolius begat, but Penelope reared, and entreated her tenderly, as she had been her own child, and gave her playthings to her heart's desire. Yet for all that, sorrow for Penelope touched not her heart. But she loved Eurymachus and was his paramour. Now she chid Odysseus with railing words, Wretched guest, surely thou art some brain-struck man, seeing that thou dost not choose to go and sleep at a smithy, or some other place of common resort. But here thou pratest much and boldly among many lords, and hast no fear at heart. Verily, wine has got about thy wits, or perchance thou art always of this mind, and so thou dost babble idly. Art thou beside thyself for joy, because thou hast beaten the beggar Eris? Take heed, lest a better man than Eris rise up presently against thee, to lay his mighty hands about thy head, and bedabble thee with blood, and send thee hence from the house. Then Odysseus of many counsels looked fiercely on her, and said, Yea, straight will I go yonder, and tell Telemachus hereof, thou shameless thing, for this thy speech, that forthwith he may cut thee limb from limb. So he spake, and with his saying scared away the women, who fled through the hall, and the knees of each were loosened for fear, for they deemed that his words were true. But Odysseus took his stand by the burning braziers, tending the lights, and gazed on all the men. But far other matters he pondered in his heart, things not to be unfulfilled. Now Athene would in no wise suffer the lordly wooers to abstain from biting scorn, that the pain might sink yet deeper into the heart of Odysseus, son of Laertes. So Eurymachus, son of Polybus, began to speak among them, girding at Odysseus, and so made mirth for his friends. Hear me, ye wooers of the queen renowned, that I may say that which my spirit within me bids me, not without the gods. Not without the gods' will has this man come to the house of Odysseus. Methinks, at least, that the torchlight flares forth from the head of his, for there are no hairs on it, nay, never so thin. He spake, and withal addressed Odysseus, waster of cities, stranger, wouldest thou indeed be my hireling, if I would take thee for my man, at an upland farm, and thy wages shall be assured thee, and there shalt thou gather stones for walls and plant tall trees? There would I provide thee bread continual, and clothe thee with raiment, and give thee shoes for thy feet. Howbeit, since thou art practised only in evil, thou wilt not care to go to the labors of the field, but wilt choose rather to go louding through the land, that thou mayst have wherewithal to feed thine insatiate belly. Then Odysseus, of many counsels, answered him and said, Eurymachus, would that there might be a trial of labor between us twain, in the season of spring, when the long days begin. In the deep grass might it be, and I should have a crooked scythe, and thou another like it. These voices do me in. And thou another like it, that we might try each the other in the matter of labor, fasting till late eventide, and grass there should be in plenty. Or would again, that there be oxen to drive, the best there may be, large and tawny, both well filled with fodder, of equal age and force to bear the yoke, and of strength untiring. And it should be a field of 4 plowgates, and the clod should yield before the plowshare. Then shouldest thou see me, whether or no I would cut a clean furrow unbroken before me, or would that this very day Cronion might waken war whence he would, and that I had a shield and 2 spears, and a helmet all of bronze, close fitting on my temples. Then shouldest thou see me mingling in the forefront of the battle, nor speak and taunt me with this my belly. Nay, thou art exceeding wanton, and thy heart is hard, and thou thinkest thyself some great one and mighty, because thou consortest with few men and feeble. Ah! If Odysseus might but return and come to his own country, right soon would yonder doors, full wide as they are, prove all too strait for thee in thy flight through the doorway. Thus he spake, and Eurymachus waxed yet the more wroth at heart, and looking fiercely on him, spake to him winged words. Ah, wretch that thou art! Right soon will I work thee mischief. So boldly thou pratest among many lords, and hast no fear at heart. Verily, wine has got about thy wits, or perchance thou art always of this mind, and see thou dost babble idly. Art thou beside thyself for joy, because thou hast beaten the beggar Eris? Therewith he caught up a footstool, but Odysseus sat him down at the knees of Amphinomus of Dulichium, in dread of Eurymachus. And Eurymachus cast and smote the cupbearer on the right hand, and the ladle cup dropped to the ground with a clang, while the young man groaned and fell backwards in the dust. Then the wooers clamored through the shadowy halls, and thus one would say, looking to his neighbor, Would that our wandering guest had perished otherwhere, or ever he came hither. So should he never have made all this tumult in our midst. But now we are all at strife about beggars, and there will be no more joy of the good feast, for worse things have their way. Then the mighty Prince Telemachus spake among them, Sirs, ye are mad. Now, doth your mood betray that ye have eaten and drunken? Some one of the gods is surely moving you. Nay, now that ye have feasted well, go home, and lay you to rest, since your spirit so bids, for as for me, I drive no man hence. Thus he spake, and they all bit their lips and marveled at Telemachus, and that he spake boldly. Then Amphinomus made harangue, and spake among them, Amphinomus, the famous son of Nisus, the prince, the son of Aretius. Friends, we have a righteous word has been spoken. None surely would rebuke another with hard speech and be angry. Misuse ye not this stranger, neither any of the thralls that are in the house of God like Odysseus. But come, let the wine-bearer pour for libation into each cup in turn, that after the drink offering we may get us home to bed. But the stranger let us leave in the halls of Odysseus, for a charge to Telemachus, for to his home has he come. Thus he spake, and his word was well pleasing to them all. Then the lord Mulius mixed for them the bowl, the henchman out of Dulichium, who was squire of Amphinomus. He stood by all, and served it to them in their turn. And they poured forth before the blessed gods, and drank the honey-sweet wine. Now when they had poured forth and had drunken to their heart's content, they departed to lie down, each to his own house. Alright, and that brings us to the end of chapter 18, wherein we saw a cripple fight, and a goddess making Penelope extra beautiful for the night to wring out that last little bit of gifts from the wooers before the end is nigh. So it's starting to get awful tense in there. And then they go home. So nothing ever really happens quickly. There's a few days here, a few days there, just stretching out on and on and on. But it is what it is. Alright guys, so it is a little past 9. I am going to take a few minutes to refill my cup. It's been, as you may have noticed, switching between all those different voices, trying to keep them all somewhat distinct, is a little bit of a strain on the throat, so need a little bit to wet the whistle. I'll be back in just a few minutes, and we will resume from chapter 19. We've got another 1 or 2 chapters in us tonight. Alright, we are back. And yeah, you're right. Penelope has put up with this bullshit for 20 years. Get paid. And Athena has already made it abundantly clear that there's no last-minute redemption for any of these suitors. They're, even the ones that are less bad seem to be tied up in this. So, if they're going down anyways, might as well get a little bit extra scratch, right? Alright. So, let's go ahead and resume. We've got about 45 minutes left tonight in our regular time, and we'll see where we left off at the end of that and go. We've got probably... this next chapter is a little on the longer side. We've got 1, maybe 2 chapters in us tonight. So, let's resume now with Book 19. Telemachus removes the arms out of the hall. Odysseus disperseth with Penelope, and is known by his nurse, but concealed. And the hunting of the boar upon that occasion related. Oh, real quick before we actually get back into it. That part about the dog? Oh, it kills you. Just basically a puppy is that Odysseus had just whelped right before he left, and he knew him, even as he was looking like a beggar, clothed by the gods, to not be able to be discerned or told who it is or realize that it's Odysseus. The dog knew, and died as soon as he figured it out. I mean, 20 years for a dog is a long, long time, especially like a hunting dog. Those usually don't last 10. So, I mean, Argos had a good run, but it gets you. It gets you. All right, so let's go ahead and get back to it. We've got some reading ahead of us. Now the goodly Odysseus was left behind in the hall, devising with Athene's aid the slaying of the wooers, and straightway he spake winged words to Telemachus. Telemachus, we must needs lay by the weapons of war within, every one. And when the wooers miss them, and ask thee concerning them, thou shalt beguile them with soft words, saying, Out of the smoke I laid them by, since they were no longer like those that Odysseus left behind him of old, when he went to Troy. But they are wholly marred, so mightily hath passed upon them the vapor of fire. More so some god hath put into my heart this other and greater care, that perchance when ye are heated with wine, ye set a quarrel between you and wound one the other, and thereby shame the feast and the wooing, for iron of itself draws a man thereto. Thus he spake, and Telemachus hearkened to his dear father, and called forth to him the nurse Eurycleia, and spake to her, saying, Nurse, come now, I pray thee, shut up the women in their chambers, till I shall have laid by in the armory the goodly weapons of my father, which all uncared for the smoke in the hall, since my father went hence, and I was still but a child. Now I wish to lay them by where the vapor of the fire will not reach them. Then the good nurse Eurycleia answered him, saying, Ah, my child, if ever thou wouldst but take careful thought in such wise as to mind the house, and guard all this wealth. But come, who shall fetch the light and bear it, if thou hast thy way, since thou wouldest not that the maidens, who might have given light, should go before thee? Then wise Telemachus made answer to her, This stranger here, for I will keep no man in idleness who eats of my bread, even if he have come from afar. Thus he spake, and wingless her speech remained, and she closed the doors of the fair lying chambers. Then they twain sprang up, and Odysseus and his renowned son, and set to carry within the helmets and the bossy shields, and the sharp-pointed spears, and before them Pallas Athene bare a golden crescent, and cast a most lovely light. Thereon Telemachus spake to his father suddenly. Father, surely a great marvel is this that I behold with mine eyes. Meseems, at least, that the walls of the hall, and the fair mainbeams of the roof, and the crossbeams of pine, and the pillars that run aloft, are bright, as it were, with flaming fire. Verily, some god is within, of those that hold the wide heaven. And Odysseus of many counsels answered him and said, Hold thy peace, and keep thy thoughts in check, and ask not hereof. Lo, this is the wont of the gods that hold Olympus. But do thou go and lay thee down, and I will abide here, that I may yet further provoke the maids and thy mother to answer. And she, in her sorrow, will ask me concerning each thing one by one. So he spake, and Telemachus passed out through the hall to his chamber to lie down, by the light of the flaming torches, even to the chamber where of old he took his rest, when sweet sleep came over him. There now, too, he lay down and awaited the bright dawn. But goodly Odysseus was left behind in the hall, devising with Athene's aid the slaying of the wooers. Now, forth from her chamber came the wise Penelope, like Artemis or golden Aphrodite. And they set a chair for her hard by the fire, where she was wont to sit. A chair well wrought and inlaid with ivory and silver, which on a time the craftsman Icmalius had fashioned, and had joined thereto a footstool, that was part of the chair, whereon a great fleece was used to be laid. Here then the wise Penelope sat her down, and next came white-armed handmaids from the women's chamber, and began to take away the many fragments of food, and the tables and the cups whence the proud lords had been drinking. And they raked out the fire from the braziers onto the floor, and piled many fresh logs upon them, to give light and warmth. Then Melantho began to revile Odysseus yet a second time, saying, Stranger, wilt thou still be a plague to us here, circling round the house in the night, and spying the women? Nay, get thee forth, thou wretched thing, and be thankful for thy supper, or straightway shalt thou even be smitten with a torch so fair out of the doors. Then Odysseus, of many counsels, looked fiercely on her, and said, Good woman, what possesses thee to assail me thus out of an angry heart? Is it because I go filthy and am clothed about in sorry raiment, and beg through the land for necessity is laid on me? This is the manner of beggars and of wandering men. For I too once had a house of mine own among men, a rich man with a wealthy house, and many a time would I give to a wanderer, what manner of man soever he might be, and in whatsoever need he came. And I had countless thralls, and all else in plenty, whereby folk live well and have a name for riches. But Zeus, the son of Cronos, made me desolate of all, for surely it was his will. Wherefore, woman, see lest some day thou too lose all thy fine show wherein thou now excellest among the handmaids, as well may chance, if thy mistress be provoked to anger with thee, or if Odysseus come home, for there is yet a place of hope. And even if he hath perished as ye deem, and is never more to return, yet by Apollo's grace he hath a son like him, Telemachus, and none of the women works wantonness in his halls without his knowledge, for he is no longer of an age not to mark it. Thus he spake, and the wise Penelope heard him, and rebuked the handmaid, and spake and hailed her. Thou reckless thing, and unabashed, be sure thy great sin is not hidden from me, and thy blood shall be on thine own head for the same. For thou knewest right well, in that thou hadst heard it from my lips, how that I was minded to ask the stranger in my halls for tidings of my lord, for I am grievously afflicted. Therewith she spake likewise to housedame Eurynome, saying, Eurynome, bring hither a settle with a fleece thereon, that the stranger may sit and speak with me and hear my words, for I would ask him all his story. So she spake, and the nurse made haste and brought a polished settle, and cast a fleece thereon. Then the steadfast goodly Odysseus sat him down there, and the wise Penelope spake first, saying, Stranger, I will make bold first to ask thee this. Who art thou of the sons of men, and whence? Where is thy city, and where are they that begat thee? And Odysseus, of many counsels, answered her and said, Lady, no one of mortal men in the wide world could find fault with thee. For lo, thy fame goes up to the wide heaven, as doth the fame of a blameless king, one that fears the gods and reigns among many men and mighty, maintaining right. And the black earth bears wheat and barley, and the trees are laden with fruit, and the sheep bring forth and fail not, and the sea gives store of fish, and all out of his good guidance, and the people prosper under him. Wherefore do thou ask me now in thy house all else that thou wilt, but inquire not concerning my race and mine own country, lest I think thereupon thou fill my heart the more with pains, for I am a man of many sorrows. Moreover, it beseems me not to sit weeping and wailing in another's house, for it is little good to mourn always without ceasing, lest perchance one of the maidens, or even thyself, be angry with me, and say that I swim in tears, as one that is heavy with wine. Then wise Penelope answered him, and said, Stranger, surely my excellence, both of face and form, the gods destroyed in the day when the Argives embarked for Ilius, and with them went my lord Odysseus. If but he might come and watch over this my life, greater and fairer thus would be my fame. But now am I in sorrow. Such a host of ills some god has sent against me, for all the noblest that are princes in the isles, in Dulichium and Same and wooded Zacynthus, and they that dwell around even in the clear sea Nithica. These are wooing me against my will, and devouring the house. Wherefore I take no heed of strangers, nor suppliants, not at all the heralds, the craftsmen of the people, but I waste my heart away in longing for Odysseus. So they speed on my marriage, and I weave a web of wiles. First some god put it into my heart to set up a great web in the halls, and thereat to weave a robe of fine woof and very wide. And anon I spake among them, saying, Ye princely youths, my wooers, now that goodly Odysseus is dead, do ye abide patiently, how eager soever to speed on this marriage of mine, till I finish the robe. I would not that the threads perish to no avail, even this shroud for the hero Laertes, against the day when the ruinous doom shall bring him low, of death that lays men at their length. So shall none of the Achaean women in the land count it blame in me, as well might be, were he to lie without a winding sheet, a man that has gotten great possessions. So spake I, and their high hearts consented thereto. So then in the daytime I would weave the mighty web, and in the night unravel the same, when I had let place the torches by me. Thus for the space of 3 years I hid the thing by craft, and beguiled the minds of the Achaeans. But when the 4th year arrived, and the seasons came round as the months waned, and many days were accomplished, then it was that, by the help of the handmaids, shameless things and reckless, the wooers came and trapped me, and chid me loudly. Thus did I finish the web by no will of mine, for so I must. And now I can neither escape the marriage, nor devise any further counsel. And my parents are instant with me to marry. And my son chafes that these men devour his livelihood, as he takes note of all, for by this time he is come to man's estate, and is full able to care for a household, for one to which Zeus vouchsafes honor. But even so, tell me of thine own stock, whence thou art, for thou art not sprung of oak or rock, whereof old tales fall. And Odysseus of many counsels answered her, and said, O wife of Odysseus, son of Laertes, wilt thou never have done asking me about mine own race? Nay, but I will tell thee, yet surely thou won't give me over to sorrows yet more than those wherein I am holden. For so it ever is when a man has been afar from his own country, so long as I am now, wandering in sore pain to many cities of mortals. Yet even so, I will tell thee that thou askest and inquirest. There is a land called Crete, in the midst of the wine-dark sea, a fair land and a rich, begirt with water, and therein are many men innumerable, and 90 cities, and all have not the same speech. But there is confusion of tongues. There dwell Achaeans, and there too Cretans of Crete, and high of heart, and Sidonians there, and Dorians of waving plumes, and goodly Pelasgians. And among these cities is the mighty city Knossos, wherein Minos, when he was 9 years old, began to rule. He who held converse with great Zeus, and was the father of my father, even of Deucalion, high of heart. Now Deucalion begat me, and Idomeneus the prince. Howbeit, he had gone in his beaked ships up to Ilius, with the sons of Atreus. But my famed name is Aethon, being the younger of the twain, and he was the firstborn, and the better man. There I saw Odysseus, and gave him guest gifts, for the might of the wind bare him too to Crete, as he was making for Troyland, and had given him wandering past Malea. So he stayed his ships at Amnisus, whereby is the cave of Eilithia, in havens hard to win, and scarce he escaped the tempest. Anon he came up to the city, and asked for Idomeneus, saying that he was his friend, and held by him in love and honor. But it was now the 10th or the 11th dawn since Idomeneus had gone in his beaked ships into Ilios. Then I led him into the house, and gave him good entertainment, with all loving kindness, out of the plenty in my house. And for him, and for the rest of his company that went with him, I gathered and gave barley meal and dark wine out of the public store, and oxen to sacrifice to his heart's desire. There the goodly Achaeans abode 12 days, for the strong north wind penned them there, and suffered them not to stay upon the coast, for some angry god had aroused it. On the 13th day the wind fell, and then they lifted anchor. So he told many a false tale in the likeness of truth, and her tears flowed as she listened, and her flesh melted, and even as the snow melts in the high places of the hills, the snow that the southeast wind has thawed, when the west had scattered it abroad, and as it wastes the river streams run full, even so her fair cheeks melted beneath her tears, and she wept her own lord, who even then was sitting by her. Now Odysseus had compassion of heart upon his wife in her lamenting, but his eyes kept steadfast between his eyelids, as it were horn or iron, and craftily he hid his tears. But she, when she had taken her fill of tearful lamentation, answered him in turn, and spake, saying, Friend, as thou art, even now I think to make trial of thee, and learn whether in very truth thou didst entertain my lord there in thy halls with his godlike company, as thou sayest. Tell me, what manner of raiment he was clothed in about his body, and what manner of man he was himself, and tell me of his fellows that went with him. Then Odysseus, of many counsels, answered her, saying, Lady, it is hard for one so long parted from him to tell thee all this, for it is now the 20th year since he went thither and left my country. Yet even so, I will tell thee as I see him in spirit. Goodly Odysseus wore a thick purple mantle, twofold, which had a brooch fashioned in gold, with 2 sheaths for the pins. And on the face of it was a curious device. A hound in his forepaws held a dappled fawn, and grazed on it as it writhed. And all men marveled at the workmanship, how, wrought as they were in gold, the hound was gazing on the fawn and strangling it, and the fawn was writhing with its feet and striving to flee. Moreover, I marked the shining doublet about his body, like the gleam over the skin of a dried onion. So smooth it was, and glistening as the sun. Truly many women looked thereon and wondered. Yet another thing will I tell thee, and do thou ponder it in thy heart. I know not if Odysseus was thus clothed upon at home, or if one of his fellows gave him the raiment as he went on board the swift ship, or even it may be some stranger, seeing that to many men was Odysseus dear, for few of the Achaeans were his peers. I, too, gave him a sword of bronze, and a fair purple mantle with double fold, and a tasseled doublet. And I sent him away with all honor on his decked ship. Moreover, a henchman bare him company, somewhat older than he, and I will tell thee of him, too, what manner of man he was. He was round-shouldered, black-skinned, and curly-headed, his name Eurybates, and Odysseus honored him above all his company, because in all things he was like-minded with himself. So he spake, and in her heart he stirred yet more the desire of weeping, as she knew the certain tokens that Odysseus showed her. So when she had taken her fill of tearful lament, then she answered him, and spake, saying, Now, verily, stranger, thou that even before wert held in pity, shalt be dear and honorable in my halls. For it was I who gave him those garments, as judging from thy words, and folded them myself, and brought them from the chamber, and added besides the shining brooch to be his jewel. But him I shall never welcome back, returned home to his own dear country. Wherefore, with an evil fate it was that Odysseus went hence in the hollow ship to see that evil Ilios never to be named. And Odysseus, of many counsels, answered her, saying, Wife of revered Odysseus, son of Laertes, destroy not now thy fair flesh any more, nor waste thy heart with weeping for thy lord, not that I count it any blame in thee. For many a woman weeps that has lost her wedded lord, to whom she has borne children in her love. Albeit, a far other man than Odysseus, who, they say, is like the gods. Nay, cease from thy lamenting, and lay up my word in thy heart, for I will tell thee without fail, and will hide naught. How but lately I heard tell of the return of Odysseus, and that he is nigh at hand, and yet alive in the fat land of the men of Thesprotia, and is bringing with him many choice treasures, as he begs through the land. But he has lost his dear companions, and his hollow ship on the wine-dark sea, on his way from the isle of Thrinacia. For Zeus and Helios had a grudge against him, because his company had slain the kine of Helios. They, for their part, all perished in the wash of the sea. But the wave cast him on the keel of the ship out upon the coast, on the land of the Phaeacians that are near of kin to the gods. And they did him all honor, heartily, as unto a god, and gave him many gifts, and themselves would fain have sent him scatheless home. Yea, and Odysseus would have been here long since, but he thought it more profitable to gather wealth, as he journeyed over wide lands. So truly is Odysseus skilled in gainful arts above all men upon earth, nor may any mortal man contend with him. So Phaeton, king of the Thesprotians, told me. Moreover, he sware in mine own presence, as he poured the drink offering in his house, that the ship was drawn down to the sea, and his company were ready, who were to convey him to his own dear country. But me he first sent off, for it chanced that a ship of the Thesprotians was on her way to Dulichium, a land rich in grain, and he showed me all the wealth that Odysseus had gathered. Yea, it would suffice for his children after him, even to the 10th generation. So great were the treasures he had stored in the chambers of the king. As for him, he had gone, he said, to Dodona, to hear the counsel of Zeus, from the high lofty oak tree of the god, how he should return to his own dear country, having now been long afar, whether openly or by stealth. In this wise, as I tell thee, he is safe, and will come shortly. And very near he is, and will not much longer be far from his friends and his own country. Yet withal, I will give thee my oath on it. Zeus be my witness first, of gods the highest and best, and the hearth of noble Odysseus whereunto I am come, that all these things shall surely be accomplished, even as I tell thee. In this same year Odysseus shall come hither, as the old moon wanes and the new is born. Then wise Penelope answered him, Ah, stranger, would that this word may be accomplished. Soon shouldst thou be aware of kindness and many a gift at my hands, so that whoso met with thee would call thee blessed. But on this wise my heart has a boding, and so it shall be. Neither shall Odysseus come home any more, nor shalt thou gain an escort hence, since there are not now such masters in the house as Odysseus was among men, if ever such an one there was, to welcome guests revered and speed them on their way. But do ye, my handmaids, wash this man's feet, and strew a couch for him, bedding and mantles and shining blankets, that well and warmly he may come to the time of golden throne dawn. And very early in the morning bathe him and anoint him, that within the house beside Telemachus he may eat meat, sitting up quietly in the hall. And it shall be the worse for any hurtful man of the wooers that vexes the stranger. Yea, he shall not henceforth profit himself here, for all his sore anger. For how shalt thou learn concerning me, stranger, whether indeed I excel all women in wit and thrifty device, if all unkempt and evil-clad thou sittest at supper in my halls? Man's life is brief enough, and if any be a hard man and hard at heart, all men cry evil on him for the time to come, while yet he lives, and all men mock him when he is dead. But if any be a blameless man, and blameless of heart, his guests spread abroad his fame upon the whole earth, and many people call him noble. Then Odysseus, of many counsels, answered her and said, O wife revered of Odysseus, son of Laertes, mantles verily and shining blankets are hateful to me, since first I left behind me the snowy hills of Crete, voyaging in the long-oared galley. Nay, I will lie as in time past I was used to rest through the sleepless nights, For full many a night I have lain on an unsightly bed, and awaited the bright-throned dawn, and baths for the feet are no longer my delight, nor shall any women of those who are serving maidens in thy house touch my foot, unless there chance to be some old wife, true of heart, one that has borne as much trouble as myself. I would not grudge such as one touch my feet. Then wise Penelope answered him, Dear stranger, for never yet has there come to my house of strangers from afar a dearer man or so discreet as thou, uttering so heedfully the words of wisdom. I have an ancient woman of an understanding heart that diligently nursed and tended that hapless man my lord. She took him in her arms in the hour when his mother bare him, and she will wash thy feet, albeit her strength is frail. Up now, wise Euryclea, and wash this man, whose years are the same as thy master's. Yea, and perchance such even now are the feet of Odysseus, and such too his hands, for quickly men age in misery. So she spake, and the old woman covered her face with her hands, and shed hot tears, and spake a word of lamentation, saying, Oh, woe is me, child, for thy sake, all helpless that I am. Surely Zeus hated thee above all men, though thou hadst a God-fearing spirit. For never yet did any mortal burn so many fat pieces of the thigh and so many choice hecatombs to Zeus, whose joy is in the thunder, as thou didst give to him, praying that so thou mightest grow to a smooth old age, and rear thy renowned son. But now, from thee alone hath Zeus wholly cut off the day of thy returning. Haply at him too did the woman mock in a strange land afar, whensoever he came to the famous palace of any lord, even as here these shameless ones all mock at thee. To shun their insults and many taunts, it is that thou sufferest them not to wash thy feet. But the daughter of Icarius, wise Penelope, hath bidden me that am right willing to this task. Wherefore I will wash thy feet, both for Penelope's sake and for thine own, for that my heart within me is moved and troubled. But come, mark the word that I shall speak. Many strangers, travel-worn, have ere now come hither, but I say that I have never seen any so like another, as thou art like Odysseus, in fashion, in voice, and in feet. Then Odysseus of many counsels answered her, saying, Old wife, even so all men declare that have beheld us twain, that we favor each other exceedingly, even as thou dost mark and say. Thereupon the crone took the shining cauldron, wherefrom she set to wash his feet, and poured in as in much cold water, and next mingled therewith the warm. Now Odysseus sat aloof from the hearth, and of a sudden he turned his face to the darkness. For anon he had a misgiving of heart, lest when she handled him she might know the scar again, and all should be revealed. Now she drew near her lord to wash him, and straightway she knew the scar of the wound that the boar had dealt him with his white tusk long ago, when Odysseus went to Parnassus to see Autolycus, and the sons of Autolycus, his mother's noble father, who outdid all men in thievery and skill in swearing. This skill was the gift of the god himself, even Hermes, for that he burned to him the well-pleasing sacrifice of the thighs of lambs and kids. Wherefore Hermes abetted him gladly. Now Autolycus once had gone to the rich land of Ithaca, and found his daughter's son a child newborn. And when he was making an end of supper, behold, Euryclea set the babe on his knees, and spake and hailed him. Autolycus, find now a name thyself to give thy child's own son, for lo, he is a child of many prayers. Then Autolycus made answer, and spake, My daughter and the daughter's lord, give ye him whatsoever name I tell you. Forasmuch as I am come hither in wrath against many a one, both man and woman, over the fruitful earth, wherefore let the child's name be a man of wrath, Odysseus. But when the child reaches his full growth, and comes to the great house of his mother's kin at Parnassus, whereby are my possessions, I will give him a gift out of these, and send him on his way rejoicing. Therefore it was that Odysseus went to receive the splendid gifts, and Autolycus and the sons of Autolycus grasped his hands and greeted him with gentle words. And Amphithea, his mother's mother, clasped him in her arms, and kissed his face and both his fair eyes. Then Autolycus called to his renowned sons to get ready the meal, and they hearkened to the call. So presently they led in a 5-year-old bull, which they flayed and busily prepared, and cut up all the limbs and deftly chopped them small, and pierced them with spits and roasted them cunningly, dividing the messes. So for that livelong day they feasted, till the going down of the sun, and their soul lacked not aught of the equal banquet. But when the sun sank and darkness came on, they laid them to rest and took the boon of sleep. Now, so soon as early dawn shone forth, the rosy-fingered, they all went forth to the chase, the hounds and the sons of Autolycus, and with them went the goodly Odysseus. So they fared up the steep hill of the wood-clad Parnassus, and quickly they came to the windy hollows. Now the sun was but just striking on the fields, and was come forth from the soft flowing stream of deep Oceanus. Then the beaters reached a glade of the woodland, and before them went the hounds tracking the scent. But behind came the sons of Autolycus, and among them goodly Odysseus followed close on the hounds, swaying a long spear. Thereby, in a thick lair, was a great boar lying, and through the coppice the force of the wet winds blew never. Neither did the bright sun light on it with his rays, nor could the rain pierce through. So thick it was, and of fallen leaves there was a great plenty therein. Then the tramp of the men's feet and the dogs came upon the boar, and they pressed on in the chase. And forth from his lair he sprang towards them with a crest well bristled and fire shining in his eyes, and stood at bay before them all. Then Odysseus was the first to rush in, holding his spear aloft in his strong hand, most eager to stab him. But the boar was too quick and drave a gash above the knee, ripping deep into the flesh with his tusk as he charged sideways. But he reached not to the bone of the man. Then Odysseus aimed well and smote him on his right shoulder, so that the point of the bright spear went clean through, and the boar fell in the dust with a cry, and his life passed from him. Then the dear sons of Autolycus began to busy them with the carcass, and as for the wound of the noble, godlike Odysseus, they bound it up skillfully, and stayed the black blood with a song of healing, and straightway returned to the house of their dear father. Then Autolycus and the sons of Autolycus got him well healed of his hurt, and gave him splendid gifts, and quickly sent him with all love to Ithaca, gladly speeding a glad guest. There his father and lady mother were glad of his returning, and asked him of his adventures, and of his wound, how he came by it, and duly he told them all. Namely, how the boar gashed him with his white tusk in the chase, when he had gone to Parnassus with the sons of Autolycus. Now the old woman took the scarred limb, and passed her hands down it, and knew it by the touch, and let the foot drop suddenly, so that the knee fell into the bath. And the brazen vessel rang, being turned over on the other side, and behold, the water was spilled on the ground. Then joy and anguish came on her in one moment, and both her eyes filled up with tears, and the voice of her utterance was stayed. And the touching the chin of Odysseus, she spake to him, saying, Yea, verily, thou art Odysseus, my dear child. I knew thee not before, till I had handled all the body of my lord. Therewithal she looked towards Penelope, as minded to make a sign that her husband was now home, but Penelope could not meet her eyes, nor take note of her, for Athene had bent her thoughts to other things. But Odysseus, feeling for the old woman's throat, gripped it in his right hand, and with the other drew her closer to him, and spake, saying, Woman, why wouldst thou indeed destroy me? It was thou that didst nurse me there at thine own breast, and now, after travail and much pain, I am come, in the 20th year, to mine own country. But since thou art ware of me, and the god has put this in thy heart, be silent, lest another learn the matter in the halls. For on this wise I will declare it, and I shall surely be accomplished. If the gods subdue the lordly wooers unto me, I will not hold my hand from thee, my nurse though thou art, when I slay the other handmaids in my hall. Then wise Eurycleia answered, saying, My child, what word hath escaped the door of thy lips? Thou knowest how firm is my spirit, and unyielding, and I keep me fast as stubborn stone or iron. Yet another thing will I tell thee, and do thou ponder it in thine heart. If the gods subdue the lordly wooers to thy hand, then will I tell thee all the tale of the women of the halls, which of them dishonor thee, and which be guiltless. Then Odysseus, of many counsels, answered her, saying, Nurse, wherefore, I pray thee, wilt thou speak of these? Thou needest not, for even I myself will mark them well, and take knowledge of each. Nay, do thou keep thy saying to thyself, and leave the rest to the gods. Even so he spake, and the old woman passed forth from the hall to bring water for his feet, for that first water was all spilled. So then she had washed him and anointed him with olive oil. Odysseus again drew up his settle nearer to the fire to warm himself, and covered up the scar with his rags. Then the wise Penelope spake first, saying, Stranger, there is yet a little thing I will make bold to ask thee, for soon it will be the hour of pleasant rest, for him on whomsoever sweet sleep falls, though he be heavy with care. But to me has the God given sorrow, yea, sorrow measureless. For all the day I have my fill of wailing and lamenting, as I look to mine own housewiferys, and to the tasks of the maidens in the house. But when night comes and sleep takes hold of all, I lie on my couch, and shrewd cares, thick thronging in my innermost heart, disquiet me in my sorrowing. Even as when the daughter of Pandareus, the nightingale of the greenwood, sings sweet in the first season of the spring, from her place in the thick leafage of the trees. And with many a turn and trill she pours forth her full-voiced music, bewailing her child, dear Italus, whom on a time she slew with the sword unwitting. Italus, the son of Zethus the prince, even as her song, my troubled soul sways to and fro. Shall I abide with my son, and keep all secure, all the things of my getting, my thralls and great high-roofed home, having respect unto the bed of my lord, and the voice of the people? Or even now follow with the best of the Achaeans, that woos me in the halls, and gives a bride price beyond reckoning? Now my son, so long as he was a child and light of heart, suffered me not to marry and leave the house of my husband. But now that he is great of growth, and has come to the full measure of manhood, lo, now he prays me to go back from these halls, being vexed for his possessions that the Achaeans devour before his eyes. But come now, hear a dream of mine, and tell me the interpretation thereof. 20 geese I have in the house. They eat wheat, coming forth from the water, and I am gladdened at the sight. Now a great eagle of crooked beak swooped from the mountain, and brake all their necks, and slew them, and they lay strewn in a heap in the halls, while he was borne aloft to the bright air. Thereon I wept and wailed, in a dream though it was, and around me were gathered the fair tressed Achaean women, as I made piteous lament, for that the eagle had slain my geese. But he came back, and sat him down on a jutting point of the roof beam, and with the voice of a man he spake, and stayed my weeping. Take heart, O daughter of renowned Icarius. There is no dream, but a true vision. What that shall be accomplished for thee? The geese are the wooers, and I that before was the eagle, am now thy husband come again, who will let slip unsightly death upon all the wooers. With that word sweet slumber let me go, and I looked about, and beheld the geese in the court pecking with their wheat at the trough, where they were wont before. Then Odysseus, of many counsels, answered her and said, Lady, none may turn aside the dream to interpret it otherwise, seeing that Odysseus himself hath showed thee how he will fulfill it, for the wooer's destruction is clearly boded. For all and every one, not a man shall avoid death and the fates. Then wise Penelope answered him, Stranger, verily dreams are hard, and hard to be discerned, nor are all things therein fulfilled for men. Twain are the gates of shadowy dreams, the one is fashioned of horn, and one of ivory. Such dreams as pass through the portals of sawn ivory are deceitful, and bear tidings that are unfulfilled. But the dreams that come forth through the gates of polished horn, being a true issue, whosoever of mortals beholds them, Yet, methinks, my strange dream came not thence, of a truth that would be most welcome to me and to my son. But another thing will I tell thee, and do thou ponder it in thy heart. Lo, even now dries nigh the morn of evil name, that is to sever me from the house of Odysseus. For now I am about to ordain for a trial those axes, that he would set up in a row in his halls, like stays of oak in shipbuilding, 12 in all, and he would stand far apart and shoot his arrow through them all. And now I will suffer this contest to the wooers. Whoso shall most easily spring the bow in his hands and shoot through all 12 axes, with him will I go and forsake this house of my wedlock, so fair and filled with all livelihood, which methinks I shall yet remember, I, in a dream. Then Odysseus, of many counsels, answered her and said, Wife revered of Odysseus, son of Laertes, no longer delay this contest in thy halls, for lo, Odysseus of many counsels will be here before these men, for all their handling of this polished bow shall have strung it, and have shot the arrow through the iron. Then the wise Penelope answered him, Stranger, if only thou wert willing still to sit beside me in the halls and to delight me, not upon my eyelids would sleep be shed, but men may in no wise abide sleepless ever. For the immortals have made a time for all things, for mortals on the grain-giving earth. Howbeit I will go aloft to my upper chamber, and lay me on my bed, the place of my groanings, that is ever watered by my tears, since the day that Odysseus went to see that evil Ilios, never to be named. There I will lay me down, but do thou lie in this house, either strew thee somewhat on the floor, or let them lay bedding for thee. Therewith she ascended to her shining upper chamber, not alone, for with her likewise went her handmaids. So she went aloft to her upper chamber, with the women her handmaids, and there was bewailing Odysseus, her dear lord, till grey-eyed Athene cast sweet sleep upon her eyelids. And that brings us to the end of chapter 19. And we are definitely at time. We do not have time for another chapter tonight. So I'll just a quick teaser. At the start of each chapter, each book is the kind of the upcoming events, a quick synopsis or summary. And the first line here, Pallas and Odysseus consult of the killings of the wooers in book 20. So it's coming soon, very soon. We've got probably one chapter of them talking about how it's going to go down, because obviously they never actually do anything quickly. It's just, yeah, coming soon to a palace near you. And then let's see, so we got 2 chapters, and then, yeah, so it looks like probably at the end of tomorrow's reading we will come to the climax of things. Just glancing forward. I mean, is it really mocking? Z is about spot on correct. This is old man's book club. So, I mean, hey, it works. We've got some others than old men here now. We've got a few more people wandering about. After Walden, it was definitely old men yelling at dead men, as I think you put it. But it's just book club, I guess now? Old folks book club? I don't know. It's fun though. We'll go back and forth, and we've got some plans. We can do some fun things. So it's all there. Oldies book club. I like it. All right, guys. So it is coming up on time. We have had a good. Oh no! Don't say that. I'm not ready to learn bridge. Now, if y'all want to play euchre, we could do that. But all right, so we are coming up on time tonight, and so we've got a big one ahead of us tomorrow. We're probably 2 readings until we're finished with the Odyssey, so we'll probably be finishing up on Tuesday. But we'll get through the climax of the return tomorrow night. 13-point pitch. Okay, we might actually be a senior center now. So, but all right, so we will continue with our reading tomorrow. I will once again do the YouTube thing. I'm going to try and make it a habit. If you can, go ahead and drop a like on the stream. Trying to grow our channel and sort of convince the algorithm to send a few more people our way. I've seen a few more people on our streams lately, and it's been wonderful, and I hope more and more people can enjoy this great literature together. And as always, as we're coming up on the end of this book, be thinking of and considering what we would like to read next. I can pull things out of the hat for myself, but I am always more than happy to take suggestions and contributions from anyone, whether it be old classics that a favorite of yours that you've read and reread till the binding breaks on your books, or something that you've just never read or thought to. And we'll just go from there. We've got thousands and thousands of books to choose from, so we're never going to run dry of material, so long as we just try and keep it interesting. So let's go ahead and wrap it up for the night, and I will see you guys hopefully tomorrow, where we get to the climax of Odysseus's return home to his palace in Ithaca. It's been a long time coming, 20 years in the making, and now 2 days of preparation work and laying the groundwork for the great vengeance to be had. It's probably going to be messy. So, we'll look forward to it and see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night.